What's going on, guys? Welcome to the World War History Bar. Today, we're going to be talking about the Meuse-Argonne offensive, and we're going to be playing some Battlefield 1. If you enjoy the video, drop a like, subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, video ideas, anything, put them down in the comment section below. Let's get into the video. Alright, so, the Meuse-Argonne offensive was the last major offensive during World War I. It was a offensive, majority was the American forces who were in this one. It went from September 26th to October 11th, 1918. And it was a very costly battle for both sides. Overall, there was over 350,000 casualties in this specific battle, with 28,000 Germans dying, 26,277 Americans dying, and an unknown amount of French soldiers and civilians. And this specific battle was the largest American battle in American military history. And the goal of this attack was to push the Germans back out of France and out of Belgium and back into Germany. Now, the American units that were involved in this specific battle were the American Expeditionary Force, the French 4th and 5th Infantry, 4th Armies. My God, I'm so dumb. This is crazy. And then the Siamese Expeditionary Force.
And well, hello guys, for one. Two, the German side had three army units, or three army groups, I should say. Army Group Crown Prince, Army Group Gallwitz, and then Army Group Duke Albrecht. I believe that's how you say it. And had a lot of, soldiers. I'm assuming they had tanks. They also had a lot of bunkers and machine gun nests on top of probably artillery. Did they have? I believe they also had artillery too, but I don't recall.
Yeah, they had a lot of artillery, but not as much as the Americans had.
Right.
So I know the Americans had over $180 million worth of artillery.
Most of it was French.
Most of it was French, but a good amount was American as well.
And also this particular offensive had three phases as well. One was literally just a giant artillery barrage. It's not something you wouldn't. It was normal in World War I.
The main thing, that's how you would start an offensive.
Yeah, just a
huge
big
artillery barrage to really soften up the troops in the trenches across the no man's land, and then the initial attack.
That way your soldiers could get across.
They had the 1st Tank Brigade led by George S. Patton, and him and his tanks, they went forward, and then was followed by the infantry who then would go into the trenches and clear out the Germans that were hiding.
Yeah.
Pretty much how it went.
Phase 2, what does that say? Oh, assault divisions.
It was the first assault, yeah. The first assault divisions would replace the initial divisions, and they would make attacks on Mount Fasson and Côte de Châtillon, and then they would begin to clear the Argonne forest. And then phase 3 starts. This would start by the complete clearing of the Argonne forest, and then the French armies making it to the river Aisne, and then the American forces reorganizing into two main armies, and they would then advance and take German defensive lines at Buzancy and La Chesney, I think that's how it's pronounced. And then
we're not
Sedan, along with its critical railroad hubs. By this time, after taking all this, that is when they would get the message that the Germans had agreed to an armistice, and that would end the war in World War I. Now, we decided to cover this specific battle and right near at the end because it's really going to transition us into our World War II stuff, because one thing we're going to talk about is the Germans and how this specific battle and the end of the war really would have an impact on people in
Germany,
the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the people who would form it. And well, we thought we'd talked about the exact battle that would, spiral into the Treaty of Versailles, and then the all the stuff that would happen after.
The end of the war, the Treaty of Versailles, the formation of the Weimar Republic, et cetera, et cetera. It's all like a build-up almost.
Mm-hmm. And you look at, I always find it crazy. So you look at this battle. There was over 1 million German soldiers involved in this battle. You don't see any army near this size.
Not anymore,
today.
you don't.
No, because we have.
Unless it's maybe China or North Korea or hell, even Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't see a military that big. Not even here, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what our current I don't remember what our current enlisted number is, but it's got to be at least in the few hundred thousands at least. I could be wrong. We could have 1 million, but not so much as big as what this was. I very much doubt it.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you look at the attack, obviously the 3 phases, there was so much more in detail, like the different little offensives and how far. In the first phase, the initial attack was very poor. They didn't make it very far into the German lines. In fact, I think the farthest advance was like 8 kilometers, and it wasn't until the second phase when more divisions came in, like the 1st Infantry Division, the 82nd. They came in, they were able to start making better advances, because in the first phase, they tried attacking Montfaucon, and they were repelled multiple times by really well dug in German defenders. It wasn't until the better divisions came in the second phase, along with obviously the tank brigades, because the tank brigades are one of the main reasons this attack was so successful. This was like one of the first times that a main offensive had tanks being the main piece in this attack. And in the second phase, this is where Douglas MacArthur would come in with his Rainbow Division, another infantry division. This is actually the time where Douglas MacArthur, George S. Patton would meet for the first time.
Don't worry, we'll get to them. We'll get to them some.
They have quite a history, and they will have a little feud, not talked about much, but there's a small feud between them throughout the rest of their
We'll
time
talk
in the
about
army.
them when we get there, guys. Justice.
And then into the Argonne Forest they would go. And if you can see in the gameplay in the background, that's where this is the Battle of the Argonne Forest.
Or at least a part of it.
A part of it, yes. Obviously, video games can't get as authentic, but
we wish, but that's not the case.
And you gotta think, this has got to be a very hard place to try to clear out, because of how thick this forested area was, how mountainous.
It's thick forest. You got probably bunkers hidden. I mean, I'm not saying camouflage wasn't a thing, but probably decently fortified and probably well hidden bunkers. You've got machine gun nests everywhere. Your path of travel is difficult because of all the forest and probably rough terrain.
They didn't have a train going through, one train rail line going through.
But there's also the account that you have all these tanks coming in, and it's like, well, this will probably not. I mean, it probably wasn't a good time either, given the fact that there was so much going on.
And also, the goal of the Americans was to take these rail lines and sever off the supply line for the Germans, and also their way out of the area.
Basically, put an I guess early or late end of the war. I guess it depends on your definition, because no one really knew how long this war was going to last. So
I mean, back in the beginning of the war, they were thinking, oh, it's going to be a 1-year war, and then it's going to be done. Turns into
4 years on, and we're like, well, when is this going to end?
Mm-hmm. And then in the third phase, as we were talking about, they clear the Argonne Forest. The French forces make it to the river Aisne, and the American troops reorganize and are able to take multiple towns that the Germans were defending. Now, then after this, they then advance to the river Meuse, hence the name, the Argonne Meuse offensive, the Meuse-Argonne offensive. And when they make it there, the Germans get pushed back into their country, and unlike World War II, once they get pushed back into their country, they sign an armistice. Yes, I cannot speak right now. And this would only be kept for 20 years before a certain man would start another war. But that will be covered in later videos. Now, overall, this was a successful offensive, but it didn't look like it in the beginning. But you could definitely say that the Americans were the superiors, and the Germans, even though they had a lot of soldiers
and a lot of training behind them too.
One good offensive with good strategy can take down a huge army. So that was the Meuse-Argonne offensive, and even though we didn't go into the craziest detail about every little thing, there are plenty of places you can look up and find the most meticulous detail. I mean, we looked on places like Wikipedia, History.com, and a few other websites, and they give us great information. And there's a lot of channels you can check out too, like the Armchair Historian. He does very good videos to give really good detail on every part. Definitely recommend you watch his videos. And then there's probably a whole barrage of other channels to watch, but that was one of the main ones I've watched, and that gives you really good information. But if you guys enjoyed the video, drop a like, subscribe. If you have any video ideas, and if you like these types of videos, then tell us down below. If you don't, tell us too, because we want to make sure that our videos not only satisfy us, but satisfy you guys. So with that said,
we're doing our best for you.
yes. With that said, we will talk to you guys in the next video. We'll see you back here at the World War History Bar next time. Peace.